Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night on TalkTV. I'm Mike Graham and this is the one place where we can be as judgmental as we want. All you have to do is sit back and enjoy it. We're going to be telling you about all the ridiculous things that have been done over the past 7 days. And at the end, we'll be awarding the Plank of the Week to an individual or possibly a team of people, who can say. I'm delighted to say that we've got a great panel joining us tonight. For the very first time, Howard Cox is here from Fairfield, UK. He's been bugging us to get on it for a long time before we actually made him a plank himself. We've got Candice Holdsworth, who's back. Doesn't seem that long ago since you were here before, but welcome. Richard Tice, our very own Sunday sermoniser, and Amanda Devlin from The Sun. It's a great panel. We've got lots to do, lots to get on with, so let us get on with it. And this is what they're fighting for, the Plank of the Week trophy. Howard, since you're here, you are the honoured guest for the first time. I hope it's not too complicated for you, the format. It's pretty straightforward. Just tell us who you think has been the biggest Plank of the Week.
I've been practising hard on things, as you know that, Mike.
Glad to hear it.
I mean, I'll make no apologies for actually recommending a serial planker.
Yeah.
And guess who that is?
Go on.
Sadiq Khan.
Straight in there. Sadiq Khan. I mean, he's literally up there every single week. I mean, I think there's only been about 2 weeks in the history of the show he hasn't been on it.
Well, I'm not letting you down, am I, Mike?
Listen, I should say, and I only do this because in the interest of fairness, we should say that you're also running for Mayor of London against Sadiq Khan, which is a very good reason to make him Plank of the Week, I would say.
Well, I hope he remains Plank of the Week all the way to the election. So,
absolutely right.
But one of the things, I mean, the whole thing I really want to put this time making the Plank of the Week is simply, I mean, we're all family here. We're white, aren't we? We're all white. We live in London. Well, apparently, according to Sadiq Khan, we're not typical Londoners.
We're not, are we? No. There was a picture that was put up on his website, I think we could probably have a look at it, in which this was a kind of guide, wasn't it, for people who wanted to put together any kind of campaign material on behalf of Sadiq Khan and the Mayor's office. And this is the typical London family that he doesn't think is a typical London family.
And he's blaming all of his staff that he didn't actually write that particular caption, which it says, this is not a typical London family.
Right.
And I'm really insulted. I was born, educated, I've worked in London all my life, near as damn it, and he's basically saying to me, I'm not a typical Londoner.
Right.
And
what right does he have? You know, I liken Sadiq Khan to a football manager. You know, these guys that come in and go, yeah, I am now the team. Yeah. And you go, no, you're not. You're in charge of the team for a short time before you get sacked. In the same way that he is not the owner and keeper, he's not even the registered keeper if it was a car of London. He's simply the bloke who's parking it for a while. And then when he brings it back, we can all get back to normal.
And there's no doubt about it. There's lots of things he's done this week. He's making a hole for himself that is almost bottomless at the moment.
Yes. I can also tell you something that we discovered this week because we did a freedom of information request on Sadiq Khan's office. Remember that ridiculous mate advert that he had? That cost nearly £250,000 to us because it's also taxpayers' money that they used. He enlisted the help of that ridiculous comedian who thankfully didn't charge him any money for it, Rajesh Ranganathan, because it was worthless comedy as far as I was concerned. Well, he didn't take any money, but they spent £250,000 of our money telling people in London to say to their mates not to be misogynistic. I mean, how ridiculous was
that? Well, watch
that?
out for the £6 million they're spending on telling us all about ULEZ, which is coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, we'll be getting into ULEZ, I think, in a minute as well, won't we, with a couple of other nominations. But we should also say that he's now spent £800,000 of our money as well on paying some guy in Imperial College, I think it is, some professor, to sort of monkey around with some numbers and some bits of data.
Don't hold back, to
make it look.
Well, lie about the data.
Tell me.
Well, the Imperial College, as you know, they also came up with originally with the 4,000 deaths in London scenario, which is fake news, as you know. And also this time they're talking about that, particularly they're saying that Imperial College, they didn't like it, especially the Deputy Mayoress. She actually was very upset. And what they said was simply this, that there was be no demonstrable difference by expanding ULEZ to the M25 whatsoever. They didn't like that, so they suppressed it. Right. They covered it up.
Unbelievable. Richard, I mean, you've been talking about...
It is unbelievable. So many reasons. But actually, what really got me was that when Sadiq Khan found out, was found out and exposed by the failures of his office, he didn't act like a real leader and says... I actually apologised and said, I'm sorry, we got this wrong, it won't happen again. What that shows, though, he just sort of, the office said that doesn't represent the views of the mayor. What that shows is that in the office, there is a culture that is anti-white. And that's unbelievable. And where's that culture come from? It's come from the top. And I think it's really serious.
Yeah, it is. And what about the Labour Party? Why is the Labour Party saying nothing?
Completely and utterly silent.
Not one senior member of the Labour Party.
Imagine that the other way around. Yeah. Just imagine if that had been any other party, any person of any other skin colour, and it would have been, I mean, the torrent of people saying resign and all, I mean, it would have just been off the dial.
Oh, it would have been going on for days and days and
weeks
days.
And
BBC, The Guardian, they've not said much about it either. In fact, I'm not even
Funny
sure
that.
if the BBC have even reported the story, have they?
Well, and equally, the Tories actually, all they've said to them is, can we have an apology? We're calling on him to resign. He's got to get out. He's a pathological untruth.
I mean, I'm afraid it's true. I mean, everything that comes out of Sadiq Khan's mouth, where he says things like, I'm listening to Londoners. Well, now we know he's not listening to all Londoners. He's just listening to people he thinks are Londoners. Maybe that would explain why he's not doing what we want.
The Labour Party seems scared of him as well.
Yeah.
You know, they're scared to take him on.
I don't know why. He's only a little bloke.
And
what are you scared of him for?
But I just wonder, you know, we were saying, you know, Sadiq Khan is always nominated for Plank of the Week. If he ever came on, who would he nominate? Because I just feel as if it's
well, we'd have
really
to get a higher chair for him for a start.
He would nominate Rishi Sunak. That's what he's done in a tweet today. He's blaming Rishi Sunak. He said, "You stay out of my politics because it's nothing to do with you. ULEZ is going ahead on Tuesday next week. You can't stop it. Ha, ha, ha."
But I do think Sadiq is definitely getting scared, though.
Yeah.
He can see that his
popularity is dwindling. Well, there was a piece in the Standard this week that said that his popularity outside of all of the central parts of London, which are his sort of strongholds, he's definitely trailing now. He's losing. So we'll see. Let's move on, though, because it's time for another nomination. Candice, who's your first one?
So my nomination is Ed Davey, who came out with an amazing statement this week. He said that menstruation is not a woman's issue, which is news to me because, I mean, I'm a woman and I thought it was almost exclusively a woman's issue.
Yeah, news to me too.
But this is a guy who said that clearly, but he said it so arrogantly, clearly a woman can have a penis. Like, I'm just so moderate and sensible and you're all just so silly.
Yes. And how did he get his knighthood? Nobody can tell me this. I mean, you know how Sir Keir Starmer got his because he was Director of Public Prosecutions, didn't do a great job, but they gave him a knighthood. What's Ed Davey done to get a knighthood? I don't understand it. Did you just get one for being leader of the Lib Dems?
It is amazing, isn't it? Like, so Ed Davey says clearly women can have a penis.
I think we have some interesting images to show you because, of course, there are some men who I would regard as slightly sexist, who have said, well, it is a bit of a men's issue because we're the ones that get it in the neck every month. Just before women start menstruating. Obviously, I wouldn't say that. But here we are, some man-pons. And because I'd said to somebody this week, I think it was Alex Phillips, and I was on the show with her, I'm sure I've been in some public men's toilets where they've had
without a doubt,
machine.
absolutely.
And you're kind of going, have I walked into the wrong toilet? You think, oh God, I've come to the wrong place. But that's something you could get. But have a look at this, and this will stand the fullness of time. This is an American commercial for something rather odd.
I see you're on one of those tough menstruations.
You know it, girlfriend. It's only 9 a.m. and I've already had to change my pants twice.
Man packs Pearl Harbors. They'll stop up that canal in no time.
Man packs Pearl Harbors, but are they safe and easy to use?
The world is so weird now, you don't actually know whether that's real or not.
Yeah, that's what I was
It could
saying.
be real. I mean, it could be. In America, there's all sorts of weird stuff going on.
They're poking fun, but actually the whole thing is a joke. And I don't know why we're not doing... I know we're laughing about it, but this is serious. This is something that women should be standing against, and men should also be standing up against it. To say, this is just not right. It's going too far now. And we're encroaching on our rights. Can we not just have one thing?
We need to be able to talk about women's health, clearly, because this is a women's health issue. I don't know why Ed Davey's obsessed with this, though.
Well, these are Lib Dum, you know. That's
they're going to debate it at the party conference.
They're going to have a debate, which is even more ridiculous, because they're actually going to debate whether or not it's a women's issue. Well, what are they?
That's going to be a rip-roaring debate. I mean, just imagine.
Just go. Well, let's start the debate. Is it a women's issue or not? No, it's not. That's the end of the
we
debate.
better get a TalkTV camera there to follow the debate. I mean, it could be riveting.
You know what's going to happen because this has been proposed by the young Lib Dems, apparently, and also the London branch of the Lib Dems. And so instead of having all those kind of mad people that come up from the West Country, you know, with sort of tartan jackets on and stuff, and they start waving their fingers at people, these are the people who think that gender neutrality is a thing, and these are the people who think that, you know, women can have a penis and all of that. But also, I'm sure that they believe that if they have a debate, and the debate is won by those who say that it's not just a women's issue, that'll be their proof. And then they can walk around the rest of the way and go, well, we had a debate and we won it. And therefore, It's right.
You're so right as well. At least in the Labour Party, there is a little bit of a tussle, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Keir Starmer's sort of been forced to bend because many Labour supporters, many of them women who really oppose this stuff, have said, Right. But in the Lib Dems, is that debate actually happening? Is there that opposition? Right. And it's kind of like unexpected. Yeah. You know, the Lib Dems have won a lot of seats in local council elections. They could actually be a threat to the Conservatives in the next election. And they've got all these balmy ideas and they're not being scrutinised at all.
Imagine if they actually have a vote on this at their conference. I mean, that could be extraordinary.
It could be very funny. Very funny indeed. Presumably you get 2 votes if you happen to be menstruating at the time. I mean, I don't know. Anyway,
I was just thinking about it. I think actually, if you become leader of the Lib Dems, you get knighted because I think it's Sir Vince Cable and I think it's Sir Nick Clegg.
Both pointless. Right? Completely pointless.
What, the knighthood or the individual?
Well, both. Well, they achieved nothing between them. Down to you, Richard. Who's your first one?
Well,
this is a late start.
I have to say, I mean, this is an extraordinary thing. We're talking about the former chief exec of NatWest, Dame Alison Rose, who was fired basically because she breached the client confidentiality of one of Coots's customers, one Nigel Farage, and then boasted about his lack of wealth to Simon Jack from the BBC, and I mean, it's just, and then tried to sort of cover it up and essentially lied about it. So she was fired for all those things.
She'll say, of course, that she resigned. She's still there, by the way.
Well, she's still there, but here's the thing. The board of NatWest, the board of directors, led by the chairman, one Howard Davis, have actually decided that she should merit a payoff to the sum of over £2.4 million, of which 39% is our cash, because the taxpayer owns 39% of NatWest. And I mean, it is truly unbelievable. If that had been an ordinary bank manager of a local branch, that person who had committed the same crimes would have been out on their ear, fired, with no payoff whatsoever, no reference, and that would have been the end of their banking career.
Can we claim a third of that? Can we say we want 800,000 quid, please?
Well, that's a great question. Maybe we should submit a freedom of information request. But my point is, I think this is absolutely egregious. She broke almost every rule in the Financial Conduct Authority's sort of principle rulebook.
Did we not say at the time she may have broken data protection laws as well? By giving away private information about an individual's bank account details? Unbelievable.
So, but first of all, let's remember, the board and the chairman, Howard Davis, tried actually to keep her in post. They had a board meeting one afternoon. They said she'd made an error of judgment. And she recognised that, but she's the person to lead us on forward, march ever forward. There was such outrage that they had to have a sort of a midnight board meeting and basically force her to resign. So, you know, I mean, this is a board that is completely out of touch.
Yeah, it shows the levels of groupthink.
It's the levels of groupthink. Frankly, I'm going to say it. I mean, it's the British establishment, those within it, this consensus groupthink that is bordering on corruption. And here they are, they're protecting one of their own. And with a circling of the wagons with a lovely, huge fat check. Off you go, I'm so sorry it's come to this. But here's something to make you feel a bit better. The whole thing's absolutely disgusting. I think the chairman should resign. I think the whole of the board of directors should resign. They've no idea what they're doing, and they are letting down. They've damaged the reputation of NatWest, the reputation of Coots, and also the reputation of British banking around the world.
Totally, because they've got everything wrong. And one of the things that we said at the time, Richard, you know, she's been on Plank of the Week before, and so has NatWest, and so has Coots, I think. You know, they had the full, the treble at one point, 1 month.
The full house.
Because at the end of the day, every opportunity they had to get something right, they got it wrong. You know, she told lies to cover up the fact that she had told something to a BBC reporter which she shouldn't have even been talking to, never mind giving, you know, secret information to. The bank then said that she was doing a great job and they should keep her on. That was wrong. They then got rid of her but kept her on. She's doing a year's notice. So effectively the 2.4 million will be added to, presumably, by another 1.5 million in salary.
That's unclear.
That she's getting already for still continuing to work there.
And that's unclear, but it is unbelievable. And it shows a complete disdain for ordinary people, for their own staff, for us British citizens and taxpayers.
It's as if there's no consequence anymore. I mean,
Right.
even say Liz Truss, you know, she got all the big payout afterwards. She's always going to have her security, everything that happened after how many days. She got to appoint all these new lords. I mean, there's as if you can just mess up the country and then do this to Nigel Farage, and then there's absolutely no.
There's no standards.
I think Liz Truss messed up the country less than NatWest have done, actually, because NatWest were responsible back in 2008 for causing the financial collapse of the entire Western world. You know, thanks to their idiocy, selling and packaging up investment deals for people in America who didn't have enough money to buy a horse, never mind a house. And they were selling them mortgages which they couldn't afford to pay back.
But what I couldn't work out was, did they actually know what it was that they were doing? Were they aware of this? What the damage they were doing to freedom of thought in this country? Or they weren't aware of it and they got a big shock? Because it seems like she tried to cover it up a little bit.
Well, she set up this committee, which was the committee that ruled that Nigel Farage was unsuitable for them as a banking customer. But instead of doing it the right way, they tried to make out that it had nothing to do with that, when it was clearly all about diversity. It was all about, the equality business that they're in, and they clearly wanted to kind of make a sort of example, if you like, of Nigel Farage, and it was a massive error.
I think they knew exactly what they're doing. I think this is really sinister. They basically think that we are the little people and that they can manipulate and dictate the way that we think and behave and what we do. And if we dare step a centimetre out of line, then we're going to be punished in some way.
And why hasn't the Information Commission's officer, why hasn't he actually done a full-blown investigation?
Well,
this is a serious breach.
Hopefully that will happen. But, I mean, this one was brought in, and we'll have to leave this after this, but this one was brought in to make NatWest Bank more diverse and more ecologically sound. And so she'll always be remembered for making the share price drop massively in the time that she was there, but also making sure that every single branch of NatWest has sustainable carpets. So there we are. Amanda, what's your first one?
I don't know if you've heard of this story this week, and there's so much going on, but this is Wilfred Emmanuel Jones, who's known as the Black Farmer.
Yes.
And he was on Sky News doing the paper review, and it was the night before the Women's World Cup final. There's a big picture, I think it was the Mirror, that was up on the screen, and it had all the England team on the front, and he just commented on the lack of diversity.
He said,
let's have a look.
Let's have a look at the clip and then we can discuss. Here he is, the Black Farmer, on Sky News.
It isn't that diverse. I mean, it really sticks out at you that, they're all they look sort of blonde, blue-eyed. And if it was the men's World Cup, it would be very representative of the Britain that we're in, very, very diverse. So I'm going to be watching
the picture or the team or
the whole team,
sport, the women's sport in general.
The whole of it.
Very diverse.
It felt really distasteful, the comments. Actually, the Black Farmer, he seems like a really decent guy.
I've had him on my show. Normally, he's quite sensible.
He's got really conservative
Maybe he'd been
views.
extending himself in the green room, perhaps.
It was a Saturday night.
It was.
He might have been a bit tired after a long week.
A couple of glasses of sherry.
Pretty excitable.
Well, it is a ridiculous thing to say, isn't it?
Because it's actually not normally him, is it?
It's not normally him, because he actually is normally a sensible person.
Yeah.
And loads of people have pointed out, nobody's ever said that the women's sprinting team for Team GB happens to be made up of 4 very quick, very good-looking black women. Yeah. There's no white women in that. Nobody goes, that's not very diverse.
It should be irrelevant.
Who cares?
It shouldn't matter. I mean, they really know how to pour misery on joyful moments. I mean, that was such a joyful moment.
I'm looking at the men's football team, led by Harry Kane, who happens to be blonde with blue eyes. That's the way it goes. He's the captain. I think the goalkeeper is also white. Yeah, there are a few mixed race guys in there, but let's face it, Britain is still, as we've said about London, a majority white country.
Well, it's 80% of the population is white.
Right.
And I think it's more, there are more black women playing in terms of 80%. It's 20% will be black.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I don't care what colour you are.
But I think
really
it's part of a more sort of serious issue, which is following on from what you said, that with Sadiq Khan and all of that complete disastrous campaigning that he did. When you're talking about comments recently, do you remember with the royal Jubilee, and they had her name was, the actress was Adjoa Ando, and she called the royal family terribly white. And she was on the ITV, and she was kind of looking at the balcony when King Charles and it was the coronation. That's what it was. The coronation. So King Charles and Camilla came on, and that was her comment, was how there was no diversity, and it was terribly white. There's also Dr. Sholio this week talking about Lucy Letby, how actually she was sort of she was kind of got away with it because she was white.
That was really distasteful.
Blonde, blue eyes, and it's just part of a very divisive, dangerous rhetoric that does really concern me, because we don't want the people to be dividing us. We're already divided enough over so many issues.
What the problem is here?
And it's scary.
Many of these statements are made on what you might call, mainstream media television channels, ITV, Sky, BBC. They encourage this kind of stuff. They all nod sagely, don't they, when people say things like that?
That was about the Sky host,
nobody goes,
they all agreed, and there was no counter-argument at all.
I mean, if you want to say it on this show, if you want to say it on TalkTV, you can say it, but you'll have an argument because somebody will disagree with you. But not at ITV. If you say that the balcony for the royal family is terribly white, they'll go, "Oh, yeah, very concerning that."
But as you say, it is so divisive. Yeah. It's discriminatory. It's identity politics. When actually the opposite is true. We're one of the most tolerant, welcoming nations in the world, and we should be incredibly proud of that.
We will be back very shortly with more because the Lionesses may make another appearance later on. I was just going to give you a heads up. But coming up in the next section, we're going to be talking some more about Ulez. We'll be talking about some bloke from The Guardian who seems to have lost the plot. I'm not sure if you ever had it. And I'll be giving you my first nomination, a man who's just come back from holiday. That could be a big area, couldn't it? This is Plank of the Week. More after this. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are well underway and already we've got some pretty good contenders, I have to say. Great to see Sadiq Khan in the first nomination from Howard Cox. I'm going to go slightly in a different direction, but it is a man also in charge of stuff, allegedly, believe it or not. He is one Rishi Sunak, who claims to be the Prime Minister of this great nation of ours. I'm not quite sure why he claims to be Prime Minister. He doesn't actually do anything. His favourite thing to do is to say he's going to do something and then not do it. And this week, when we learned that 18,000 people have now come to these shores illegally on small boats, that's just the ones we've counted. That's just the ones we know about who have been brought here by either RNLI or Border Force. After saying as one of his 5 pledges to the people of this country that he was going to stop the boats, he's now said he's probably not going to stop the boats, which we sort of all thought was going to be the case anyway. But here's a video clip of him saying how he's going to stop the boats.
We've introduced tough new measures today to help us stop the boats. The new illegal migration bill means that if you come here illegally, you will not be able to stay. You will be detained and then you will be swiftly removed to your own country if that's safe, or if it isn't, then a safe third country alternative like Rwanda. And we will make sure, like Australia and America, that if you've arrived here illegally, you will not ever be able to return.
Now, I don't know how many of you were convinced by that when he said it at the time. It was a good enough aim. I mean, Richard, you and I talk about this an awful lot. And yes, we need to stop the boats. Yes, the people want him to stop the boats. But since he said he's going to stop the boats, he literally hasn't stopped any boats. And in fact, more boats than ever have come.
I mean, that's the reality. And I don't think anybody believed him when he first said it, because he hasn't got a plan. No. And no one will stop the boats unless you literally pick them up out of the boats into the Border Force cutters and take them back to France. Yeah. That's what I've been advocating for about a year now. We can do it under existing international law. That's what should be done. The moment anybody who's leading this fine country has the courage to do that, within a fortnight, this whole vile, dangerous trade will stop, because no one will pay to go on one of those boats if they know that they will be picked up in the Channel and they will be taken back from where they departed. Yeah. At which point the whole thing's game over. We know that because it worked in Australia. Yes. They did it. They stopped the boats. They did exactly the opposite of what Rishi Sunak.
But of course, the longer this goes on, the better the traffickers get at the business. I've now heard from several sources that there is now a free bus that travels up and down the coast of Normandy, and it runs approximately from Calais, possibly up to as far as Dunkirk, maybe further. And it's a free service, apparently.
I wonder if it's a ULEZ compliant bus.
Well, it may well be. It may well be one of those Boris Bendy buses. That's probably where it's ended up. But they're shipping migrants up and down, because I've heard from several people now that these buses stop at a particular point. The migrants get out, they walk down to the beach, they get on a dinghy, and they cross over the Channel. And it's very well organised.
It's very well organised. In fact, it's so well organised now that some North Africans are coming via a different route. Yeah. French-speaking ones, they're coming into the UK as their route to get into France.
So they're going the other way.
It turns out it's easier to break into the UK than it is for them to break out of the UK. I mean, the world's gone completely bonkers.
It really is incredible. There's one of the things I've said to people as well is who drives these boats? Presumably there's somebody with their hand literally on the tiller or on the outboard motor or something.
I think they go on training courses.
Yeah, but I mean, there must be a guy who you would say is the guy who brings the boat in, the pilot, if you like. And what do they do with them? Do they arrest them?
No, I think they get a discount. I think very often they're actually one of the...
They get one of the bigger rooms.
They're one of the illegals.
You get a sea view.
They get a penthouse room.
This is it, right? Because we've now had the Bibby Stockholm, which is now such a joke that nobody even mentions it anymore. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know whether there's 15
Have they got rid of the Legionnaires?
No, well, the Legionnaires is still there, I think. Yeah. But I think they put the 15 back. I don't know whether they're still there. Yeah. Somebody told me that they've got a bus service that travels to and from Portland into the town, and it finishes at 8 o'clock at night. If you miss the last bus, don't worry, we'll pay for a taxi. I mean, that's what's going on. It's unbelievable. You know, Rwanda didn't work, even though I said it would.
And you were wrong?
Comments. No, I wasn't. They never tried it. Ascension Islands, that's also dead in the water. As soon as they said it, the RAF went, well, no, what to do in that. I mean, there's nothing that he can do that makes it in any way a success. But let's have a look at, there's the latest TikTok video, and we'll just talk over this because you'll see it. This is filmed now. There's a load of these on TikTok going around by people who are basically travelling here. It's like a holiday sort of video that you would film. Here we are. We've arrived at the water park, and we're all just going to get on this boat here. And when we get off on the other side, look at that. He doesn't look worried, does he? Does he look as if he's in fear of his life?
Really no. It looks like a sort of rib experience that's going up and down the Thames.
Yeah, exactly right. And here comes the fake wave, you know. And then next they're going to get to England. And then the next thing you see is when they arrive at their rather plush hotel. And it is rather plush. Twin beds, nice linen, very, very new. It looks like it's just been done out. A nice flat screen television, ensuite, of course. A little bit of a headboard, some nice, lighting in case you want to invite somebody
Got a telephone
around.
access.
He's just looking through the room service menu, see if he can order up a couple of
nice colour scheme.
Hamburgers. I mean, it's incredible.
High quality bed linen.
He looks happy. And I'm sorry, I've got nothing against these people. I don't blame them for coming, but somebody's got to stop this before people get so annoyed that somebody does somebody else some harm. Because I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's total lawlessness. And I have noticed in recent weeks, attitudes are starting to harden towards the way the French are handling this. Because people are like, why can't you just do something? These are your beaches. How can you just let this carry on? And it's obvious that they're not doing enough.
No, they're not doing anything. I mean, there is nothing happening. Since Rishi Sunak said, we're going to stop the boats, literally it's got worse. And there's going to be another 20,000 coming between now and the end of the year.
He's had a success story, and I think we should give him credit.
Go on.
Because he sent France more money, which they've gratefully received, and they've sent us more illegals.
We should give you a bit of a heads up here, though, because you've got a great story at the weekend, which was the Home Office questioning of these characters as they come through, sifted by these crack units from the Home Office, who basically aren't allowed to ask them any questions that might upset them. And if they're told any lies, that's fine. You just go...
They can say that. It's a 71-page Home Office guidance document for the caseworkers, and I've read it cover to cover, and it is extraordinary. You can sort of understand why they can only get through about 1, possibly 2 cases a week. Over 90% of these interviews now are done by Zoom, which makes it harder to find out whether actually the person you're interviewing is the real person.
And you mustn't cross your arms, is it?
All sorts. So they're done by Zoom, and you have to take sort of lots of breaks.
That's from the hotel that they're already in.
If they lie, then you have to take the context into account. You're not allowed to be sceptical, and so it goes on. And so the reality is that the number of claims that have been accepted has risen in the last few years from 30% to about 75%. Whereas in France, it's around the 20% mark. And this is the reason why, because you've got a guidance document that is actually skewed deliberately in favour of the claimant. And it's just completely wrong. And again, you talk about the anger of the British people. I think, this is yet another expose that shows the whole thing is bonkers.
And people who come here legally pay thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to come here. And then there's just an open door.
They must be frustrated.
They are. I know someone who made one mistake on their form for leave to remain, and it was refused, and they had to pay another £5,000.
Well, just tell them to go to Dunkirk and come back on a dinghy.
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's what you do now.
Yeah.
Don't save the money. Don't give it to a lawyer. Just go over there and come back. Anyway, Howard, your second opportunity
Yeah, I mean, we've got this wonderful event next Tuesday, and it's called the ULEZ expansion is getting launched. And
what time does it start? Is it midnight?
It does.
So is it sort of like the wacky races? We go ping.
Yeah, suddenly
everybody who's now out on the roads is going to get hit with a fine for £12.50.
And with all the 300 or 400 cameras all been smashed to smithereens, I mean, what's going to happen in terms of actually you're going to be caught in all these sorts of things? No, what's happening is what we need to do, and I wrote to the nominee that I'm going to mention now, which is Mark Harper, the Transport Minister.
Yeah.
Back in November, on the day that Sadiq Khan announced the extension, I wrote to him and say, you can intervene and stop this if it's not actually consistent or acceptable to actually road transport policy. And he wrote back to me. In fact, Richard Holden, his number 2 MP, who's the Minister for Roads, wrote back to me and simply said, because it's a devolved region, we can't do anything about it.
What?
Well,
devolved region?
Yes, that's
capital city?
Yeah, that's what they called it.
I mean, who's running this place?
Exactly.
Bunch of clowns.
But Section 143 of the Greater London Assembly mayoral, when it came back into operation in 1999, says they can intervene.
Yeah.
They can do what they want with it if it's inconsistent, basically, with the residents and the people operating in London.
I had an MP on months and months ago, standing on College Green, and I said to him, can the government not stop Sadiq Khan from what he's planning to do because the people don't want it? And he said, well, we can, but what the government doesn't want to do is to pull all the powers away from the mayor, because that would be quite a big move. But they could do it. They just don't want to do it. We learned today, did we not, or this week, shall we say, that Rishi Sunak asked the lawyers in the government if he could do it, and they said, ooh, might be a bit difficult. So he went, that's it then, I'm not doing it. But we've got to stop, we've got to move on, I'm being told, otherwise we're in big trouble, and we won't ever get to the point at which we get a fine. So, Candice, who's your second one?
Well, an eminently sensible writer from The Guardian, because you only ever hear sensible things from The Guardian. So this week, Twitter was alight with debate because George Monbiot thinks it's a good idea to reintroduce wolves to the English countryside.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That'll just be great. I mean, you can just discard all the fairy tales about how awful wolves used to be, and as soon as the first child or dog is attacked, then we'll see how much he really likes that idea.
It's a typical kind of London champagne socialist point of view, isn't it?
That's the point.
Bring some wolves back.
But that's
good.
it. Everyone saying this doesn't live in the countryside.
Right.
And the people who live in the countryside are actually like, I don't mind deer turning up in my back garden. I really would not like a wolf to turn up.
You really don't want a wolf. But these are some people that feed foxes.
Yes.
Think they're cute. Oh, and they're lovely.
But they're so naive about it. Because, I mean, I've lived in countries where you actually have to be careful about wild animals, like dangerous predators who'll, like, snatch your dog and things like that.
Right.
And you don't romanticize these animals.
No.
I mean, they are
That's why
killers.
people in the countryside have guns.
Yes.
So they can shoot things that they come too
Mike,
close.
I'm going to disappoint you here, I'm sorry to say, but I do feed foxes because I've got a den of 8 foxes in my garden and 16 badgers.
Really?
I'm sorry, but we're not allowed to touch them because they're protected.
Well,
because I'd like to get rid of them, but I can't.
But you don't have to feed them.
No, I feed them to keep them away from my bloody garden and wrecking the lawn.
Yeah, well, they'll keep coming back if you keep feeding them. Nobody touches it.
No, we've got no choice.
Yeah, no, you have got a choice. You know, just hire Jolyon Warm and bring him round and say, look, I've got some legal work for you, but first, you just kill all these foxes before we get on to the main business. Anyway, we've got some George Monbiot, but here he is not killing foxes or indeed encouraging wolves, but here he is encouraging Just Stop Oil.
We'll be seen as Martin Luther King, as Gandhi, as Mandela. They will be seen as the suffragettes are seen today.
You boys took one hell of a beating. Mandela, Gandhi, the suffragettes.
Monbiot.
I didn't know that Monbiot spoke for the entire world.
I went to school with him, I must confess.
I mean, he speaks for the entire people of the earth. Amazing. And unfortunately, most of them don't buy The Guardian. This is Plank of the Week. We'll be back with more fat-bottomed girls maybe featuring. Welcome back to A Plank of the Week. This is the programme where we do all the judging and you just have to sit back and agree with us, because that's what we do. Of course, I'm going to make the final decision. This idea of having a panel of democratic votes is a complete myth, and it's not going to happen. This doesn't work. Democracy doesn't work. All you have to do is look at who's running the country and who's running London. But Richard, it's time for your second
I'll tell you what, I'm not sure who is running the Genesis preschool in Hull.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly a bunch of people who have no idea about actually what you should be teaching to children. They decided that it's appropriate to show 4-year-old children a book called Grandad's Pride, which shows men dressed in leather, fetish and bondage gear to 4-year-olds.
Incredible.
Which they actually then, when challenged by some parents, they said, it's okay because the children won't understand the pictures.
No.
And the pictures showed, a few of the images showed men in this sort of bondage gear. One had them...
They're also sort of embracing each other. You can see the picture there.
You see the picture there. One's got a leather codpiece that's sort of tightly strapped around his midriff and his crotch. He's got studded leather dog collar type thing. I mean, the whole thing is just extraordinary.
I've got 4 kids. I've never seen that at the school gates, I have to say. Whenever I've gone to pick the kids up in the afternoon or take them in the morning...
thank heavens for that.
I mean, maybe I've just been in the wrong... I've never been to Hull schools, you know, but it's
it all
not
goes on in Hull,
not something I'm used to be honest.
How does this happen? How have we ended up in this place that teachers of young children think that this is appropriate because they won't understand these erotic images? Why not actually just teach them how to, how to read and write,
also to
and maybe don't show...
hang on. They're only 4.
They're 4.
They don't even need to learn how to read and write yet. I mean, they can learn just how to interact with each other.
Just socialise. Don't show them erotic pictures. I mean, it's just...
and they said that don't worry about the pictures, they won't understand it.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
That was their justification.
What's the point of showing them?
Well, maybe...
Well, this is the new education, right? Just show children loads of things they don't understand. Don't explain it to them, and just leave them to figure it out for themselves.
And they'll make
let them have
the
nightmares.
parents have this really awkward conversation.
But it's the same sort of arrogance that you see with the whole clearly a woman can have a penis. They do these absurd things. People say, what are you doing? And they say, there's nothing wrong with this. It's as if you're the person with the problem,
Well, the people who
not them.
complained, they complained and were called bigots, weren't they? By the teachers who said, what's wrong with you two? And they were like, well, we want to take our child out of the school, thanks.
Yes,
absolutely
good for them.
right. Quite right too. And it's another war zone that is developing within the whole education community where certain groups of teachers are basically saying to anybody who disagrees with them or challenges them, you're a bigot, you're a nasty person. Right. Whereas actually, we're just normal folk, who just quite like things to carry on as they used to.
And these will be the same people who invite, drag artists in to teach children about sexual education. And they think that we're being unreasonable when we say, well, actually, I don't really think a man waving a plastic dildo around in front of 4-year-olds is particularly appropriate. I don't think they really need to see that.
Or normal.
No.
Yeah.
It's awful. What is the head teacher doing of that school? I mean, there's a safeguarding lead who cannot think seriously that this is correct.
It's one thing to teach about different forms of sexuality and all that once kids are old enough, but not at the age of 4.
No.
I mean, we were asked to get in touch with them to see whether they'd anything to say, the Genesis preschool people, because obviously we like to offer people the right reply, but unfortunately nobody was available because they're all a bit tied up.
He's been working very good.
As soon as they get out of the handcuffs, they'll be in touch. No, that's
why they're paying you the big bucks for that.
Exactly. But, I don't understand. Next, they'll be taking them on a trip to Soho. Let's have a school trip. Where are we going? Tower of London? Buckingham Palace? No. We're going into the sex dungeon underneath one of those clubs in Old Clapton Street. Don't worry. If we leave anybody behind, they'll be well looked after.
And don't worry, because they won't understand what's going on around them.
No, it'll be fine.
Make sure you bring a packed lunch.
Don't order a bottle of champagne because you'll get done. Be about 500 quid. Exactly right. Sorry.
But don't put any sugar in that packed lunch.
No.
Sugar's bad for them.
I mean, well, that's the other thing. If you try and bring in a chocolate biscuit, that's it. You're banned. But you imagine this dress-up day at Genesis preschool. Your kids are coming in dressed as prostitutes. Coming in with the old, the gimp suit on. Can you buy a gimp suit for a 4-year-old? I mean, I've been asking this question all week. Who is it that's pushing this? Which individuals or groups of people think that children need to know about this
My
stuff?
theory,
and
right?
why?
My theory is that that Jim Carrey film where he's like he thinks it's his life, but actually he's being filmed and it's all
Truman
for TV.
Show.
Truman Show.
Yeah.
So I think that that's actually what's happening with us now. We're in it.
Yeah.
And they're waiting for us to actually stand up and do something about all of this craziness that's happening.
What, rebel?
And we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
We're just letting it all happen. We're just giving this to 4-year-olds. We're letting Just Stop Oil take over.
Yeah.
We're just doing whatever with Sadiq Khan.
They're just upping the ante.
Yeah, and I think they're all like having an absolute laugh backstage, just thinking this is a great show.
I think it's more sinister. I think these are bad people. I think some of these people genuinely, they get off and they have fetishes with children, and I think we should challenge it, take it head on, and frankly stop it and ban it.
Stand up and actually raise
it. It's the normalisation of it is entirely wrong. You're quite right. Now, Amanda, back to the
serious stuff,
rock and roll.
Actually. Yes.
Bring it on. Now, I'm told that this song was originally written about groupies. I'm not sure if you're old enough to remember Queen. You're probably not, are you? Are you?
I actually saw them. I
saw them in 1977.
I saw them in Lewisham.
Queen's Silver Jubilee. I saw them at Earl's Court. Brilliant.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. I can't remember if they did this song. Tell us about this song.
Yeah, so this is, it's actually what I'm going to nominate for Plank of the Week is the children's music player Yoto, which I hadn't heard of. I don't have kids, and it's basically a sort of system where you can control what's on there, and I don't know if anyone else has it on the panel, but you control the songs they're listening to. Right. So they've got, they were uploading a greatest hits of Queen. And one of their songs is Fat Bottom Girls. Right. And they decided
I think we have the cover of it. If we
they decided to ban it.
Yes.
From
there it is.
From
That'll take
children.
You back, Howard.
I'm sorry.
Back to the 70s.
It very much does.
Yeah.
That's such a 1970s image.
Bicycle.
It is, isn't it?
So it's a double A side, this apparently, if you remember that in those days. It was a single, so Fat Bottom Girls on one side and Bicycle Race on the other.
That's very pertinent to me because cyclists hate me.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't mind cyclists when they're like that. if you want to, the thing is, you can now cycle around London naked.
Absolutely.
You can't have a song that might offend some children about fat bottom girls.
Well, that's the strange thing, though, is when right after what Richard has been saying about this school in Hull, that's okay, but then this has been banned from this music player, so that kids growing up now can't listen to this song. And okay, it's suggestive, it's cheeky. It's
not that bad,
it's a bit of fun. It's not that bad, and fat bottom girls. Maybe they're offended at not being included. That maybe there's a
But it's what they
there.
pick and choose that I find interesting. I mean, I don't know, and I've never heard like you of Yoto, so I don't know what they allow and what they don't allow. But it's supposed to be a kind of children's version of Spotify. But I mean, children listen to all sorts of music, and if you listen to any sort of music, like Nicki Minaj, for example, which I discovered not that long ago, I mean, it's absolutely riddled with sexual references. Yeah. It's filthy, it's swearing. There's all sorts of epithets there that you wouldn't be allowed to say on the radio, certainly. But I don't know whether you can get Nicki Minaj on Yoto or Kanye West or any of the other sort of...
I remember being on a concert recently, and there was I don't know, maybe about 7, 8-year-olds behind me. And there was a summer concert at Wembley, and they're dancing away, and they are suggestively dancing, they're singing along to every word. And it's like kind of Nicki Minaj or a Ray or one of the more modern ones. And that's what's happening, and that's the problem, not this, a bit of fun from back in the day. Yeah. And that's what we're sort of getting it all confused now, and we're not realising the actual problem.
Yeah. And let's not forget, the last item that we spoke about was, you can't listen to a song like that in preschool in Hull, but you can be visited by your grandpa,
in bondage.
And that highlights the complete madness of the whole, of everything that's going on.
Instead of everything, we need to just start from scratch. Start from scratch and just from back to the beginning, and back to basics.
Back to basics, Get your bear skins on, and we'll just pretend we're back in the caves and play a bit of... I mean, absolutely, Bohemian Rhapsody's not very nice either. Somebody gets shot.
Yes.
We have to ban that one as well. Anyway, coming up, I've got another one for you. It's a bit Lioness related, it has to be said, but it's about a man who's also a mayor, but not in London. This is Plank of the Week. Friday nights are changing on TalkTV with not one, but two Mike Grahams. I've got Plank of the Week at 7 p.m, and I've got The World According to Mike Graham at 8 p.m. That's two Mike Grahams for the price of one. It's not what I was told. You'd be mad to miss it. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham, this is TalkTV, and it is, of course, Friday night. Coming up after this, it's The World According to Mike Graham. I know it sounds a bit mad, but it's a bit different from this, and you want to stay on and watch it. I've got a great panel here. We're almost at the end, but I've got one more nomination to go, and we have had Sadiq Khan as this sort of bookends this. Sadiq Khan was the first nominee. The last nominee is Andy Burnham, by me, who's the Mayor of Manchester, who's almost as useless as Sadiq Khan, but not quite. But the reason he's in the Plank of the Week is nothing to do with you, Les, nothing to do with his black polo neck. It's to do with a tweet that he put out the day of the World Cup final between the Lionesses and Spain, which, of course, we all now know they lost. He said this should be the last time when other football takes place on the same day as the Women's World Cup final. It's time for the whole footballing world to give the women's and girls' game the respect it deserves. Which came as quite big news to the Premier League, La Liga, as the Serie A in Italy, you know, the
Bundesliga in Germany,
in France, you know, all of the places in America that play MLS football, South America, you know, they're all going, sorry, what, you want us to stop playing football on a Sunday because the women are playing in a World Cup final?
At 11 a.m.
How ludicrous a virtue signalling. So he sort of won the virtue signalling game, because people were ridiculous about it, weren't they? You know, we had Rishi Sunak wishing them well, even though he couldn't go. You know, Prince William wishing them well, even though he couldn't go. Everybody getting behind them. You know, it was just
lack of sincerity.
It feels disingenuous.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd rather they
and also as a woman,
be real about it.
As two women, I mean, it's patronising, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. I mean, like, I genuinely enjoyed watching it. And I actually felt something watching it. But that is your choice. I hate this sort of like you say, it's virtue signalling, and it just sucks all the joy out of it. And that's when people start becoming resistant as well. They're like, well, I don't want to watch it.
It's like once you start conditioning people to say you have to be very, very happy about this, you have to admit that it's the greatest, most glorious thing ever.
It's Orwellian.
You know, I actually tweeted out later on in the day, I hope Andy Burnham's all right. P.S. Andy. By the way, the women have proved themselves to be entirely equal to the men because they haven't won a World Cup final. You know,
see, that's genuine.
But you're not allowed to have a sense of humour about it, are you? You know, if you don't like women's football, you're now a misogynistic creep. You're now some kind of horrible individual, and you are not Andy Burnham, who, of course, is every man's woman.
Did he block
or is it every woman's man?
Did he block you on Twitter?
He hasn't, no.
Oh, right, you're okay then.
I think he might have muted me, though, because the only good Labour politicians do block me, and the ones that I think don't block me just mute me, because they don't want me to report them doing so. Angela Rayner's blocked me, David Lammy hasn't. That'll tell you everything you need to know. Right? But there we are. Now, listen, what are we doing now? Picking the winner. Blimey. It's that time. OK, well, listen, I think there can only be one winner. It's not George Monbiot, even though he disgracefully went to prep school with Richard Tice. Howard Cox, very good start, I have to say, with Sadiq Khan and Mark Harper. I think it has to be. It's actually between two of Richard Tice's nominations. It's either NatWest or it's Genesis. I think it's going to be Genesis. Ooh. I think it's got to be the preschool with the men in bondage gear. Because NatWest have had it before. Genesis may never get the chance again.
This is their chance to tie it all up.
Surely, just tie it all up. Put a cherry on top. Here you go. Well done, Genesis preschool. You can wrap the plank wood in leather if you wish. It's a special edition. Thank you very much indeed, Howard, Candice, Richard, and of course Amanda Devlin. We'll see you next time. Next, coming up, it's The World According to Mike Graham.
Could you ever celebrate coming second?
Definitely not.
If you had to come up against a team that had a Russian player, would you shake their hand?
This is war.
To be branded a cheat, what has that done to you?
It's hurt me.
How much money have you made?
A lot.
So if you want more of that, vote for Piers Morgan Uncensored in the National Television Awards.
I like you. Piers Morgan Uncensored!